Well, I will. I'll start off by just welcoming you here. I'm thrilled to
Thank you.
be interviewing you. This series, Leadership Life, has been great for me to ask other folks that are leaders of organizations or folks that have developed as their leaders in an organization. And I learn from each and every one of them. You have the unique experience as having been one of those that actually taught me leadership when, believe it or not, I used to be highly energetic and go a million miles a minute, and I needed somebody to give me a little guidance and polish. And uh, I've gotten refined a little bit through the years, but you were one that had a distinct impact on me, not just from the right counsel or the right guidance, but the right temperament that leads to the right guidance. And your use of patience and pause and the English language and inflections and mannerisms is so incredibly subtle and smooth, and it literally makes the medicine go down much easier.
I think
So
there's a song for that, isn't there?
yeah. So that was a very long introduction, which is exactly the opposite of what I probably should be doing. I should be asking a broad range of questions. First off, just who is Piers? I know you personally. I was listening to a podcast you did last night, and as soon as Natalie heard the volume, she was like, "Is that Piers?" And it just instantly recognizable. So, for the audience, tell me who Piers is.
Well, for the audience, the question, of course, is loaded because we suddenly, for most people, there's a little tension that starts to run up from just above the belly button up to here. There's a I don't know my biology, but this bit, and it's because we're suddenly asked to expose ourselves, whereas we should actually pause for a moment and think, what's our audience? Who is our audience, and how should we customize our response?
Mm-hmm.
So I could start with I was a bouncing baby like all the other bouncing babies, with all those doting aunts who prod you and poke you and, oh, isn't it cute? So more recently, I had a wonderful career, initially financial markets, then general management, then a wonderful time at FutureSource, and then I became a coach and mentor. And curiously, it was only really the idea was a short-term something, a gap fill, until because I was fairly well set up, and I thought, you know what, I'll just need a little bit and then I can retire. And of course, these things that we think are just a little bit turn into be our entire sort of reason for living, and it became a passion. So I'm moderately dyslexic, which has advantages and disadvantages. One of the disadvantages is if I was on a desert island and I got 3 goes a day to spell the word immediately, and if I did that, then magically I would leave, I'd still be on there. I mean, there's so many terrible choices. IME, IMEID. I mean, it's just terrible.
And you get halfway through and you forget the rationale you
That's right.
used
Yeah.
for
And
the first
which
ones.
one did I just do? So no. But it does give a different gift, which is that I think differently to other people. And I was born very intuitive. So intuitive plus dyslexic makes an interesting combination because we're used to filling in the missing gaps because otherwise we can't read and we can't do things. So that combination has made me exceptionally good at reading systems, reading rooms, reading systems, reading sets of information. Now I
Reading
always have to
people.
reading people. I always have to double check and say, I've just got this and I've kind of got it. Now, where's my empirical evidence? So then I'll ask some questions to make sure I'm not just making it up. So curiously, that was a remarkably useful, it was very useful beginning of my career because I could, in the financial markets, I could remember all the orders. I just could. And when people asked a broken date, what's money from so, I said, oh, 11, 16s, 5 eights,
Yeah.
because it just got it. Um,
Naturally occurs.
it just naturally occurs. Um, And so it led me to, so I asked myself the question when we sold the business, what did I love doing? And this actually gave me the foundation for all the work I do with clients. So I asked the question, what I love doing? And there were three things I loved doing. I loved working with my cleverest clients, the BPs, the Morgan Stanleys, the Citibanks. And that was a very cerebral energy, Okay, he wants to work out, what the dated Brent against um, a shipment of cargo against a refinery, or those kind of all very cerebral. I love being captain of the ship with a team and all those things. And I loved growing the team and working with people and helping them grow. And each of them had different energy, but the one that kind of energized the heart was this working with people. So I wrote down on a piece of paper, my new career. My new career will be da 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 da. And in the tradition of The Secret, I kind of put it under my pillow and waited for something to happen. And remarkably, it did. And someone we both know, Robbie McDonald, called me and said, I've got dysfunctional sales team, Piers. Could you sort them out? Oh, I can do that for you, Robbie. So that was my very first piece of work. Then I was invited to join and brought into ownership of a mentoring business. And so most of my work is 80% one-on-one and about 20% with teams. And so it's given me a unique insight. I suppose I work now about 140 C-suite leaders, ranging from giant S&P 100 kind of organizations through mid-size, billion-dollar businesses, through entrepreneurial businesses, through family-led businesses. And it's just wonderful. And it's just given me such an insight and has told me all the things I wouldn't do. Now, number one, I'm unemployable now. So no one would have me. But if I would, it's funny, I was working with a client, lovely guy, and he had a shipping line. I mean, ships, lots of them. First thing you learn when you go to work with anybody involved with ships, you learn they're called ships, and it's boats they hang off the side of it. Because first of all, you ask about the boats, and you're put down very quickly, and you don't make that mistake again. So he had a big, well, he had two cruise lines, and he was looking for a director of operations, which basically is everything non-marine. So it's being a hotelier with a lot of floating stuff. And I always wanted, my chosen career was to be a hotelier. So I thought, this is good and it paid well. And I thought, oh, this is quite interesting. And, so it's a lovely job. And he suddenly written, are you interested? I said, well, I might be. I'm chatting with him. And they said, well, would it be difficult work? I said, no. I think you're obviously would be my boss, but I think we'd be more like colleagues because, I'd had a mentoring relationship with him, as CEO. We both got excited and then it dawned on me. I said, would I have to come in every day? And we just burst out laughing and that was the end of it. So no, unhireable. But if I was going back to run a business, I would do so little. We make this huge mistake all across Western society, maybe a bit in the East as well, that we think there's some way to fold time and space and get more in than we can. Now, the only person I've ever seen do that successfully was Albert Einstein and Doctor Who. All right. I mean, nobody else folds time and space. All right. So do your viewers and listeners know Doctor Who with the TARDIS and
Yes.
we do. Okay,
those
good.
my age do. I don't know if those younger do.
So for the young ones, a Doctor Who is a Time Lord who travels through time and space in something that looks like a British phone box. It's actually a British police box, which is much bigger on the inside than the outside, which is why when people step into small cars, oh, it's like a TARDIS in here because it's bigger than you think. So we make this fundamental mistake of trying to do too much, believing there's something wrong when we can't do it all. I read a very interesting article, it's an interview with Jamie Dimon a couple of months ago. He obviously has the advantage of A, being a billionaire, B, living close to the office, C, having a driver, 3, having 19 assistants and all those kind of things. But I mean, he gets in early, he gets in around 7, and he stays till around 6:30. But he has 5 hours a day available for his top people. So you want to talk to him. It's not, oh, he'll see you Wednesday. You call up and assistant number one will say, oh, sure. Between about 2:30 and 4 would be good. Shall I put you down? So this is one of the reasons he always knows what's going on in the business, because he's perpetually in constant contact with it. And that's the only way to run a business of that size. Because, it's just that you're forever in what I would describe as the conversational memo, the conversational email about what's going on, because you're just part of it in the conversation. So I'd really just choose two or three things you were going to do. So number one, you're responsible for the strategy. So as the great Peter Drucker said, strategy is not about trying to predict the future. It's understanding what the implications of the decisions you're making today, what they are. Yeah. I'll give you an example. So in the UK, we had an incredible mis-selling scandal. Does mis-selling translate okay?
Probably
Almost.
not.
Okay. So when people, usually financial organizations, for example, sell you a product that you don't really need and is borderline wrong, we call that mis-selling.
Got it.
And actually, it's a technical term as well. So big retail banks, the Wells Fargo, Wachovia, Citibank, Chase, those kind of banks, ended up writing a check for, in US terms, about $55 billion for mis-selling, which is, it's a bit more than small change.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was because they didn't pay attention to a decision they were making and didn't understand where it would take them. So they decided that they wanted to be more competitive and they wanted a more enthusiastic, younger outlook in the managers. So they offered early retirement to a lot of the older, experienced managers and put younger managers in charge of 2 or 3 branches where they come on, this is your chance to really show your potential now, you get on with it. So they did, and they started moving the dial a little bit, and then they came back and said, well, the challenge is that the people on the cashiers, the people on the registers, the tellers is what you call them, they're not incentivized to sell products. So, they don't. Oh, well, we'll incentivize them as well. So in a period of probably 6 months, 9 months, a year max, you've gone from an individual manager who knew their clients, who was the person you went to talk to, and who gave you good, solid, honest, impartial advice, to a group of people who are now commissioned to sell you products that you may or may not need.
Right? And they're more inexperienced with which to provide you that guidance.
Exactly. So they sold people lots of insurance they didn't need. So if you think about it and you think Drucker's model about what it really is, the implications of your decisions in the future, someone at some meeting somewhere should have said, oh, this is a big culture shift. What impact might that have? Plus, we'll probably sell more product. Oh, are there any risks to this? So back to our theme. So strategy. So the boss has to be responsible for strategy, but you're not trying to predict. And you should be setting a directionality. I'm not a fan of goal setting because the risk with goal setting is you get your goals. Now, some of you people who maybe listen to this while driving, thinking, okay, so who is this crazy English guy? I thought that was the whole point of goal setting, is to get your goals. Well, yes and no. The challenge is that you can only set the goals from where you are now. So they're limited by your experience, limited by the potential that you can see. Whereas you should set the directionality and then deal with what comes up and make small adjustments. So there's a very big business called Arm, which you might have heard of, who one's first comment is going to say they make chips. Well, actually, they don't. They just design chips. So Arm didn't set out to be the biggest chip maker in the world, or by Christmas we'll do this or whatever. They had a kind of mission, a message, and it was called MIPS for the masses, right? Because they wanted to give computing power for everybody. So they ended up creating this unique business model where they designed the chips for multiple companies and didn't manufacture a single chip, and got the place of trusted chip advisor where everybody shares their secrets and what they're doing for next generation with them, because they know that ARM wouldn't dream of telling anybody.
Yeah.
So then they get the benefit of this unique ecosystem that forever makes the chips better and their uniqueness. But I defy anybody to say that if ARM had come up with their business plan, with their ambition, with their goals, that they would have come up with, we're never going to build a chip and we're going to be the biggest chip maker in the world, you know?
Yeah.
So they just adjusted. Oh, we'll do this. So you're doing the strategy. You're going to be working with the key stakeholders, internal, external. Drucker also says that the role of the CEO is to be the interface between the internal world and the external world. So you want to be thinking in those terms. So how are you, the inside and the outside? Bringing the two together, reassuring when it's choppy, right tone, setting the tone, those kind of things. Then you should be spending time with your customers. Yeah. Well, it's part of the inside outside, but spend time with your customers. And pretty much that's all you should be doing. Obviously, if you're running a regulated business with your regulator, maybe if you're funded by an external, make them feel like I raised VC money years ago and we burnt it all. It was fine, it all went. But they were okay about it because I treated them all along that they were owners, and every decision, contrary to the founders who wanted to keep it to themselves. No. You bring them in on the decisions. So there was no one to blame.
Yeah.
So they just, well, okay, well, that's a shame, a few million down the pan, but hey, I can talk to any of them today still. So, yeah. And then underlying all this, am I wandering too much, or is this all?
No, I think this is great. You're basically just walking through what are the things that you should be doing if you're in a leadership position.
So I heard the former, it was a small round group, former CEO of Saatchi & Saatchi, the advertising agency.
Mm-hmm.
He was a very interesting man, very driven. He spent a month in London, 2 weeks in New York, and a month in New Zealand with his family, where he was also dean of a university there.
Okay.
So back of the room, excuse me, how do you do this? He said, well, I take out 50% of things in my diary. Which half? Which ones?
Yeah.
I don't know, but the important ones always get put back in. And then he said, and then after he's been speaking to us, he was going off to see the president of Toyota. He said, I run by the mantra, I only do the things that only I can do. So, if you're a small business owner, you're someone who depends on the community for your business, and maybe the other part of the community for your license or something like that. Make sure Stephen Covey talks about the emotional bank account.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you got something in it.
Yep.
With
your spouse, with your employees, with your community, with your customers, with anybody.
Whole thing.
Yeah.
Hi, I know we haven't spoken for 18 months, but I'd like you to do me a favor, please. I mean, what kind of calls are these?
Yeah.
So, and all humans, all businesses are grounded in relationship. So make sure you've got solid relationships. Make sure you're connected. The only thing that worries me about the world, apart from the rockets and the atom bombs, all the normal stuff, we're becoming transactional. And it's now in everyday life. I know that you have at the gas station petrol pumps that talk to you while you put your credit card in.
Yeah.
So you've got no human. And by the way, they don't work very well for foreigners, but hey ho. Sorry, aliens. Let me get my term right.
Yeah.
so we lose even the simplest relationships. Um, you know, and a chatbot isn't the same.
Yeah,
I know you're a chatbot, and even if you're clever with even a talking chatbot, I know you're a chatbot.
yeah.
Uh, so relationships are everything. Right, you should ask me a question.
What did you? There's an awful lot of people I watched you mentor that either they were getting mentored right alongside me, or I was trying to mentor them with you mentoring them. But there's folks like myself and Steve Decker and Chris Harrison and Guy and Steve Stewart and Robbie, and there's a legion of people that all you helped shape a little bit, some more directly, some than others, but all of them, I think, would look back and say, yeah, Piers gave me a little polish. Piers shaped me, he mentored me, he developed me, he made me more confident, he supported me, he challenged me, whatever it was. What did you see in all of us that made it worth your time?
Wonderful question. You thought that was a straightforward question, didn't you?
I was
You
hoping it might be.
you thought we've gone deep enough already. Right, we're going right down the rabbit hole now, sunshine. There were two great Greek thinkers, Plato and Aristotle. There were others, but they're the two we in the West tend to spend our time with. Very, very different. Aristotle believed that we arrive as a blank slate, tabula rasa, blank slate. And it's our experience, particularly for him, our education, our upbringing, our nurturing, all these things which turn us into the person we become.
Mhm.
Plato had a different and very romantic idea. Now, this is a model, and as my professor, when I did my master's, said, all models are wrong, some just happen to be useful.
Okay.
So Plato had this idea that there's a perfect version of you in the heavens, which he called your prototype. Jung later codified this into the idea of the archetype. But there's an individual, perfect version of you, of your potentiality. And here on earth, it's your job to fulfill that potentiality. Now, what I'm telling you now, I couldn't have told you then because I didn't know it, but I know it and understand what I did, and now I can articulate it. So I both actually see and physically get a sense of a person's potentiality. And so I see them a bit like, do you know the figure of the Michelin man,
Mm-hmm.
the tire man? Yes. So I see you all like tire men, and my job is to help you to fill the Michelin man shape.
Yep.
And I have to hold that Michelin man shape for you, or woman shape, but he's a Michelin man, not a Michelin lady. But you
Yeah.
never know, do you? But it's my job to hold it for you until you can hold it for yourself. So I offer you, or offer your people, the most attractive, most compelling potential of yourself. And I keep offering it to you until you own it yourself. Does that make sense?
It makes great sense. How did you see that evolution in a variety of different people such that you said, I'm going to keep going? Any of those people that you adjusted is probably not you talked to Guy Scott and said, Guy, I think you ought to do this. And he was like, okay, Pierce, I'll do that. And then he was perfect at it the next day. Every single one of
No.
us
So
took
sure,
took
this of course,
consistent,
yeah. So this,
constant coaching.
yeah. So this I've now codified into a methodology, which is the work I do. So I just work with a lovely client, 6 month assignment. He's candidate to take over a divisional UK and Ireland CEO of a quite big business. And literally, I can see the progress in front of us from meeting to meeting. And there's a sequence that happens, which is number one, you see the different performance, the different behavior a little bit when they're just with me. Then you see it a lot with me. So that's what I'm guessing. There's probably a bit of it going on outside as well. And then I see it, and it's obviously not simplistic I'm making, I see it all the time when they're with me. So I know they're doing a lot of it outside. So it's quite simple that generally, if people find it attractive, they come back for more. And if they come back and come back and come back, you carry on. If it just drifts away or people don't come back, then it's not the right time. You know? Or maybe I'm not the right person. You know, you have to. So I was introduced to a client, a lovely guy. I went to see him. He was a CFO and divisional CFO, and he was up for group CFO, and he'd been up for group CFO before, and he didn't get it last time. And I met him, and I couldn't see him as group CFO because I could only see, why I wouldn't have hired him. And I thought, I mustn't take this assignment. So I said, now I know why I've been recommended, I know I've been sent, and I think I'd make a good mentor for you, but I know someone, he's very busy, who would make a great mentor for you. Well, within 90 seconds, his interest in me was zero, and all he wanted to know was when I could set him up with the right guy.
Yeah.
And interestingly, and it was someone I knew well, who I knew would be good with him, went to see him, thought, he's all right, and worked with him, and he got the CFO job. So, so you really have to park the ego. I mean, there was an old, I saw in a temple in Southeast Asia, I think it was Thailand, please leave your shoes and your ego at the door. And, there are times, I'm really good at what I do. I mean, I'm amazing. Well, I'm absolutely top, phenomenal. And I can say with complete confidence. There's lots of other things I'm not very good at all.
Yeah.
An Excel spreadsheet gives me indigestion, my accountant, when he does it for me, I've done this, and look, you can toggle here, and which one should we do in the spreadsheets? It's quite simple. So that's another thing. There's a wonderful tool called StrengthsFinder, which was developed by a man called Marcus Buckingham, and it's marketed by Gallup. You can do it online.
Yep.
And it talks about strengths. And I talked to Marcus Buckingham about the model and how it works and everything. And he said, well, in our world, he said, we don't talk about strengths, things you're good at. We talk about things that energize you. And that's a lovely lens. So really, you should be doing the things that energize you. Because when you do, the time flies. I mean, when we were speaking before, you explained how smart you'd been to get out the way of intelligent people. Give them space. Make sure you're available if they want a little guidance, but otherwise give them the space and do the stuff you're really good at. You're a schmoozer. That's a technical term, is it? Schmoozer? You're a schmoozer.
It doesn't. That's not the royal title, but yes.
Yeah.
I like talking to people, and
totally.
I'm a storyteller.
So we're going to lock you in a room with a computer on your own, yes, and wonder why your performance isn't so good. No, it's madness. So I think we should all be looking at. So there's two ways to look at the world. What's wrong with it, and what's right with it? Now I know I'm preaching to the choir, singing to the choir here.
Preaching to the choir.
Preaching to the choir. There you go. So you can either spend all your time worrying about things you have no control over and being miserable, or you can start working with what's working. And this is based in science. I did a neuroscience certificate program. So there's two different bits of the brain, there's a lot of different bits of the brain, but for simplicity, there's two different bits of the brain. There's a modern, clever, thinking front bit, and then there's the ancient old brain, the stem and the amygdala. So the amygdala was designed for a very particular purpose, and that was to protect you. So you're walking in the forest, and you're not sure is that a twig or a snake. Well, the front modern part of the brain, oh, I wonder if it's a snake or a twig, or let's go and have a poke. You know, the amygdala, boom, and it overrides every system, and it will only allow you to do one of three things: fight, flight, freeze. That's it. Boom. So that's what the amygdala was designed for. And we don't really need it now because it was protect you from saber-toothed tigers and the rest of it. But there's a lot of modern things in modern life that activate it. So, for example, autonomy. People generally like high levels of autonomy. When you remove that autonomy and you're over their shoulder, it activates the amygdala because it activates a mild threat state.
Mm-hmm.
When you throw in lots of uncertainty into the system, that activates the amygdala. Fairness. Things that are unfair always activate the amygdala. Whoa, it's unfair, it's wrong. Status, someone gets promoted, the other person doesn't. End of the world. And the challenge with it is that it's a visceral reaction, so you feel it. And because it's a kick to the system, it also reminds you when you were told off by your dad, when you were chucked out the class at school so you boom, 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 boom. So it's stacked. So even when it's mild, you can walk around feeling like that. Or you just ask the simple question, what's working? What's the good news? What's the little bit here, amongst all this snow? Look, there's a green shoot. I wonder what's going to come next. And people who do this are so much happier, so much more successful. I'm not saying we should be stupid and pretend that there's not danger out there. Of course there is. But just work with what's working. So when I'm working with a client, the first thing I do is I check, are there any fatal flaws that's going to trip this leader up? Is their behavior where they think they're being strong and decisive? Is it actually borderline intimidating or bullying? Do they interrupt always in the meetings? I mean, these are really fatal flaws. You've got to fix them. After we've done that, or examined if there are any, I only work with what's working, what they're good at, what they enjoy, what energizes them, what's working well in the business. When you don't get a customer, you can have an all-day meeting why you didn't get the order, why it all went wrong and everything, or you could actually go and spend time with a couple of people who do love you and ask, why do you love us so much? And then make sure, by the way, do you know anybody else who you think would like this kind of relationship?
Mm-hmm.
People spend far too much time fretting over the stuff they didn't get rather than paying attention to what they did get and why did they get it. Oh, we didn't get this one. Oh, we're going to have to invent a whoa, whoa. It's rubbish.
Yep.
It's just total rubbish.
I for sure learned it in the second half of my life, partially just because of the kind of things you surround yourself with, whether it's subject matter or the kind of people you surround yourself with. But also, I've just found it's almost like your nutrition. If you consume a bunch of things that are bad for you, you feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
If you consume a bunch of things that are affirmative or are good for you, you're like, well, that feels pretty good. I'm the Michelin man. I feel good.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's very hard to remember to do that in every situation, to sort of turn off that little sensor in the back that says, oh my gosh, I'm upset, I'm mad. But if you do, you begin to think, oh, that guy that honked because I didn't move immediately when the light turned green.
Right.
And he's horribly upset. I'm not going to absorb any of that. That's
can we go straight to this? So
yes,
I was going to write an article. I wrote a book. We haven't plugged the book yet, but we'll do it.
Yep.
Early warning.
Definitely plug the book, and it'll be a little stream underneath. Buy 10,
exactly.
please today.
Buy now, yes. Only 4,000 copies left, and the numbers click down. I know that one. Okay. I was going to write an article. I've written a number of articles, and there's a couple of good ones being published. I was going to write an article about how difficult it is to tell the difference between malicious intent and stupidity.
Okay.
And I started
I'll
to
read it for sure.
yeah, I started to research it, Chris, and I found there's actually a law, there's something law, and it is never ascribe to malicious intent that which can be ascribed to stupidity.
Okay.
Makes your life a lot easier. 90% of the time, it's pure stupidity. Yeah. You know, the guy who turns across, or the lady who turns across, cuts right across you with the lights when they're changing. It's not malicious intent, it's just plain stupidity. It so this because indeed the honk of the horn, that's one. Boom. You know,
Yeah.
who are you honking at? I mean, 2 minutes later we're out the car and we're wondering, boom. Well, your country, it's guns now, isn't it? Out the back. It's not even fisticuffs.
That's a little scary, but true.
Yeah.
But
So
you
don't know.
do, you realize in getting aggravated about something, you are making a conscious choice to put your energy into something that is aggravating you and think about it. And I view it, I was always around traders. I was never a trader myself, but I always view it like a trader of you have X amount of energy a day. That's your trading capital to work with. Why would you put 10% of your trading capital into being pissed off? Because it doesn't actually make you any money. Now you just have 90% of your capital left. And for most humans, your capital is really your energy battery that you start with every day. And if you start and you're mad at the person in traffic or the person that's getting you a coffee or whoever opened the office or whatever, if you start that way, you're saying, okay, 8 o'clock, I'm at 87%.
Yeah.
That's just crazy, not smart. But you gotta be willing to, and I always use like a trading as well, or analogy as well, of just cut your losses. Like if you're starting out and you're in a bad mood and you're already down 5% before you get in the car, like sit for a minute in the car before you go down to 8% and 10% by the time you get to work. Like just change your trajectory and get out of that losing trade.
And unlike your phone, you can't quickly plug it in and get that battery back up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
So,
sometimes it's just knowing I'm going on I'm on the wrong track. I just got to get off the track. Like
okay.
right now, I'm driving the wrong direction, and I honestly would be better to pull over and think about the right way to get there than hope that the next light might be the right one and I'll know where I'm going. Just take a chill and just don't go backwards.
Mhm. So you mentioned this. There was a fair amount of research done around peak performance. How do organizations get peak performance from their people? And it is so simple and so elegant. It's just beautiful. So there's only 2 or 3 things that you actually need. Oh, you'd like me to tell you, would you? Yes.
I've evolved. When I first met you, I would say it's patience or it's persistence, and you'd be like, I wonder when he's going to stop and actually listen. And I learned that from you.
So
I would
number
always
one,
fill the void.
okay. um, number one, enough sleep. This is so critical. Number one, enough sleep. Number two, an optimistic, pleasant environment in which to work. Number three, agreed, very slightly stretch deadlines. That's it. And no, you can't get it done with 2 of them. You need all
Hmm.
three.
How do you um you worked in an industry, in my experience with you, you worked in an industry where people had a lot of responsibility, sometimes at a young age, but they had a lot of responsibility. And because it was an aggressive entrepreneurial environment, uh, people had to really step into their role. It wasn't, well, let's see how Robbie does over 10 years. It was like, no, Robbie or whoever it is, if you're going to be in that role, you got to step into it and get going. How do you help a younger person now where similar to you, I see someone and I say, oh my God, they've got the potential to be this big. And they're at a point in time in their life where they're like, I think maybe I could be this big. How do you help that younger person get a sense of, oh, you might be off by a factor of 5 or 10?
Lovely, lovely. So let me tell you a little story. I had the pleasure of meeting General Schwarzkopf, Stormin Norman. And he talks about when he was a young officer in the Pentagon. And it was his first weekend, I think it was Labor Day or something. And he was that strange sort of march walking that only military people do, where they naturally fall into a kind of rhythm and they're not marching, but they're kind of, And he was actually being left in charge as duty officer of the Pentagon on Labor Day weekend. He was sort of senior enough to be given it and junior enough that he couldn't complain. It was that little sweet spot. And he said, General, yes, Schwarzkopf. One small question, if I may. Yes, Schwarzkopf. If anything happens, Schwarzkopf? Yes, sir. If anything happens at the weekend. Oh, rule 1, Schwarzkopf. Rule 1. Rule 1, General? Yes, Schwarzkopf. When given command, take it. So we have to make sure that the person we're working with or the person in position understands they have the authority to screw up, and that we will back them when they screw up. You and I, we'd pretty much let most people do whatever they wanted when we're on vacation because we knew it would be all right. But I do not want to come back and find I've got a 25-year lease on a satellite, thank you. So,
Or I took it incumbent upon myself to give a different strategy to Merrill than you've ever talked to him about.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I told we're all on side. Yeah. So
yeah.
You kind of said but you've got to give the person the sense of the space they're entitled to fill. And then the person has to make sure, and I write about this in the book and why I was so fortunate when I was young. You have to be adaptable and adoptable. So you have to read the environment. You have to know, you just pick it up. And you've got to be adoptable because you want some sponsors and supporters. Yeah. You don't just want the one, because if they leave, you're screwed.
You want to be viewed that way by everybody.
High performing, high potential. That's the box to be in. If there's any doubt about this one, the high performing, high potential, top right hand corner box.
How did, and you worked in an environment again where there were a lot of folks that wanted to be a high achiever. So there was a pool of people that were coming. They naturally, I think by nature, were ones that wanted to see their careers grow. So I don't think you had to tell Robbie or Steve or Guy, hey, get going. Like, I think they wanted to grow. You might have had to tell them you actually have to do a lot more than you're currently doing to grow, or you might have had to tell them you need to refine X or Y or Z. But I think you were dealing with mostly individuals that wanted to step into what's next. How do you help someone that isn't even sure they're supposed to go to the next to see themselves of, let's say Steve Stewart came to you and he wasn't very confident. How would you help him?
It's so funny we're having this conversation. I put a post on LinkedIn, and somebody young from the London office who was in accounts and desperately wanted to get into sales, Matthew Rutland, and he nagged and nagged and nagged. And I told him, I said, well, okay, but we'll consider that, but you've got to be able to work the system, you've got to know the system, you've got to do that on your time. And he did it and became a junior salesperson. It was great. And he just put up, he said, oh, I'm so pleased Piers saw potential in me. I don't know what he saw, but he saw potential in me, and he's willing to back me and let me have a go. And that changed my life. And after I finished that, I've set up my own business, and it's just amazing. So I replied to him and I said, well, it's quite simple. I saw ambition and integrity. And that's what we should always be hiring on. Now, sometimes if we need a specialist skill like brain surgery, then ambition and integrity isn't quite enough.
Mm-hmm.
We need a bit of skill as well.
How do you, I'm in the business and a lot of people are developing leaders, and my challenge is usually not that the person isn't capable. My challenge is I have a vision that's beyond where they see themselves right now. And I'm trying to think, how do
Easy.
you understand?
Okay.
You're
Okay.
not on the 2 to a 3,
Yeah.
you're a 8 going to 15.
Okay. So number one, you don't talk about the 15 yet because you'll scare them rigid.
Okay.
So if you want to teach someone to swim and you take them to swimming baths and you just say, right, what we're going to do by the end of the week is we're going to do a length. What? No, what? So, or you say to somebody, I think we should go on a walk. What's your nearest city? No, serious question. What's your nearest proper city?
For us, Chicago.
Chicago, fine. So, how many miles?
40.
Okay. So, it might be a bit of a stretch to suggest we're going to do a 40-mile walk.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But, here's what I suggest we do. So you'd start with we could always walk to Chicago. No, I tell you what, let's walk to, and you go to somewhere that's about a quarter of the distance. Because you've got to expand in their brain the idea of the bigger potential, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you get them to think about this idea of walking to Chicago, and now you let them off the hook. Oh, but we're only going to walk this far. Oh, that's manageable. Whereas actually, if you told them to start with, we're going to go for 15 miles. Well, I'm not sure about 15 miles, but suddenly 15 miles looks quite reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to cheat a bit on this. The other thing is all the learning's always in the doing. So you've got to take them along to your biggest client and understand that all you do with your biggest client is just tell jokes. Because they're in their suit, they're in their shirt that's one collar size, too small because they haven't worn it for so long with their tie up. They can hardly breathe, and they don't know if they're supposed to talk or not, right? And then they come back, oh, is that what a customer call's like? Well, I hope it is, So all the learning's in the doing. So you've somehow got to get them to. I don't understand why airlines don't have for those of us who like to sit in emergency exit routes and things, I don't know why they don't have one on the ground where you can sit and practice opening the thing and throwing it out. I mean, it'd be so much useful if it happened, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Oh,
Because everyone says I'm ready, but
yeah, which red tag, So this learning in the doing. The fact that you believe in them will have a potentiality for them, But you also have to be a little careful because whilst you want to give them a new opportunity with a little stretch, you don't want to literally throw them in the deep end where they're struggling, and then that puts them off for good.
mm-hmm.
Oh no, I tried that. I was promoted to be a team leader. I didn't like it.
Yeah, I've made that mistake probably more often than almost any other, is saying, well, I see you here, so let's just get you there right now. And again, I viewed that when Kurt Klein back at Future Source said, hey, why don't you go from being the marketing guy to head of sales? I was like, cool, that's awesome. It was, that was a rough learning lesson,
Yep.
but I liked it that way. You also got to just recognize that the vast majority of humans, they don't.
Yep.
And it's normal not to.
And the other thing is with women, with female candidates, even more difficult because most men will, oh, I could give that a go. Whereas most women, they get caught in, many women, and I think it's true to be most, get caught in a bit of a catch-22 that they won't go for things that they haven't already done. So, men will have a go. Women will probably not go for it because it's too big a step. So really, the very talented ones, you've got to really encourage them and support them and offer to be a key sponsor and things like that. Or an internal mentor. We
Yeah.
haven't talked about the power of internal mentorship, which is just phenomenal. The fact that someone would be willing to spend time and work with them. But I mean, what a gift that we can give people opportunities and chances.
That's what I think would help most, is just realizing who is there to help mentor them and take them up on it. I still remember times where you and I would talk, or you'd be over visiting at the corporate office, and we'd start going into something, and I'd be like, but Piers, blah, 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 blah. And you'd be like, do you mind? Could you go back to the first sentence? And I'd be like, well, Meryl's, ugh. And you'd be like, okay, let's just take that one. And now let's go to the next one. And now let's go to the next one. And I wanted to get it all figured out right now. And I think you saw, okay, the guy's willing to work hard at this, but he just needs to have some patience and deliberation and maybe some hesitation before he says his thoughts. And it helped me tremendously. But you were there. I had to be smart enough to listen to it, but you were there to do it. And a lot of people have those within their family, within their business network. But you got to really tap into it while you have it.
I feel we've got a big question, but
Okay.
I don't know what the big, because I'm guessing we're sort of naturally coming to a sort of close. And we got a big question, but my question is, what's the big question?
Okay.
Apart from, where can I get the book? Apart from that one. But I think I should have them all behind me, shouldn't I? On like one of those things like they do on,
Yeah. When you're on CNBC and
yeah,
there's 85 books behind them,
yeah,
and you think, does the guy really think that there's 85 people that are going to come over and want a book today in his office?
today, I know. Yeah. Um,
W-
so yes,
I'll try one.
okay, you try one.
Yeah, I'll try one. Um, what advice would you give to an executive of any kind at any point in time in their career growth that you think is an understated piece of guidance, that, as small as it might be, that is just so absolutely um, crystal clear important, but is often forgotten?
Okay. Yep. You have to read the signals in the system. All the information is contained within the system. Everything. You've got to read the signals. You've got to read the nuances in the room. You've got to read the shifts, the moving shifts of power. And once you've learned to read the signals in the system, your greatest gift is flexibility, this adaptability, this willingness to move and change. So we have a plant in the UK called the Buddleia plant. I think it originally came from somewhere like New Zealand. It looks a little bit like a lilac, but it's a
Okay.
different species, but it has that kind of flower. Now, these buddleias, they'll grow anywhere. And by anywhere, I mean anywhere. They love railroad tracks for some reason. They just love it. Railroad bridges, give it 3 grains of earth in there, it'll grow. Chop them down, they'll grow bigger and stronger. Do you have any roses in your garden?
I don't, but I'm very familiar with gardening.
Okay, so roses we could describe as particular. That
And that would
face
be kind.
that would be kind. That face a particular way. Um, they don't like too much sun. They don't like too much shade. They don't like too dry. They don't like too much water. Then you've got the green fly, the black fly, the white fly, the rest of it, and all that. And
Alkaline.
if you're very lucky, the aphid spray. If you're very lucky, you'll get a beautiful flower. Which one of those two, the buddleia or the rose, is going to take over the world? The buddleia, because it's flexible.
Mm-hmm.
You see, I was going to say Darwin is misquoted, but he's accurately quoted, but misinterpreted. He spoke about the survival of the fittest, but his fittest was most adaptable.
So not the strongest,
Not the
not the
strongest.
tallest, the
Nope,
fastest, the one with
nope,
the.
no. I was in New Zealand and Lake Wanaka, which is the lake up from Christchurch, um, sorry, from Queenstown. And there's a little island in the middle that's a nature sanctuary. And we'd gone this boat, bam, 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 went there. And there's a very strange plant, a stiff, it's like a small bush tree thing. And it's got a straight up trunk with nasty spikes all on it, up to about 3'6", just over a meter for your international listeners. So just over a meter, about 3'6", spiky. And then the rest is a normal plant. I said to our guys, I said, this is really interesting. Why is this? He said, oh, he said it had a predator that used to chew its bark, but they could only reach up on all, stand on the 2 legs at the back and chew, but it could get no further than about 3 foot. So over the millennia, this thing grew spikes, so it couldn't get eaten by this critter, and then could become its normal bush. So this is great adaptability. Be adaptable, be adaptable, be adoptable, read the signals in the system, and everything will work just fine.
Tell me now, or tell everybody here now, what the book is, where to get the book, why you might want to read it, or what kind of a person might want to read it and benefit from it.
Oh,
And
well.
these are, I will go over the official word. These are Piers in the Pocket nuggets, which are great. I would have called them Piersisms, but they're individual stories and snippets based on a lot of these principles. But I'll have you tell us
Okay.
what is Piers in your pocket.
So the book is called Are You Still the Future? Are You Still the Future? And my question was, how do you remain relevant? How do you adapt to your growing, changing, and the world's growing, changing? And it's written like a fast-paced novel. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but it's a good page turner. And we've got wonderful chapter headings. So, for example, chapter 1, well, I got chapter 0 because nobody ever reads introduction. So I've called it chapter 0, which is the introduction, basically.
You've always
And
got to do it a little different.
it's called One Last Trade. The next one is called Where is Tom Next? In the Desert with Storming Norman, again. Be Braver Than a Warrior. I'm an Imposter, Get Me Out of Here. That's a very popular chapter. Anyway, it goes all the way through. So it's a lovely book. And it's a book in 2 halves. And if for the MBA students, the mid bit is the pivot point, all right? And the first half of the book is getting there. And the second half of the book is what you're going to do when you get there.
Okay.
And so, you can read it through and you can smile, oh, I wish I'd done that. Or if you're just starting out, oh, is there all this to learn? And at the end of each chapter is a lovely bit which is called Piers in Your Pocket. and it's all the little highlights of the chapter. A couple of paragraphs, 5 bullet points. So it just gives you a bite-sized remembrance. So on my LinkedIn feed, which anybody's welcome to see, there's a photograph there of the most folded, dog-eared, written over copy of any book I've ever seen. And it was beautiful because, you know, some books should be pristine on the shelves. Others, there's no greater thank you than for it to be, you know, scribbled on and written in. I've always wanted to write a book, and I've been taking notes for years, none of which appear in the book, by the way. And I'd been thinking about it a lot. And just before COVID, I got a message in my inbox. Have you ever considered writing a book? Would you like some help? Ooh. So I spoke to this very nice lady, but she wanted to ghostwrite for me. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to write for myself. And I mentioned it to a colleague and said, "Oh, you need Debs," who turned out to be my publisher. And she was just brilliant. She said, "Right, the first thing to do is you mustn't write another single word." I mean, which is very strange advice. But she was right. She said, you've got to get your structure right, know exactly who you're writing for, and not some, you know, wishy-washy. So there was an early client of mine, a guy called Greg, late 30s, just about 40, stepping onto the real role as first-time CEO. So that's who it's really written for. You know, those who've stepped up. It's lovely. You can get it Barnes and Noble. They'll order it for you. Get it Amazon overnight. It's lovely. Truly, I say without arrogance, I'm incredibly proud of it. One of my clients said it's quite remarkable. You've managed to codify all your experience into something that's so readable. And he said, and I've never said this about a book before. He said the second I started reading it, I knew I was going to read it again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and people, in fact, my goddaughter's goddaughter, she read a couple of chapters when it was being. She said, "Oh," she said, "it's amazing." She said, "It's like you sitting across the table talking to me," and that's how it should be. So it's not one of these Ponzi works, and you know, it's got all sorts of fancy, expensive, clever people saying it's amazing on the back. You know, but that's everyone does. All we do is ask our best friends who happen to be in really good places, you know, can you write something? They've all read it though. They've all read it though. Yes.
Well, I can say from experience, having spent 13 years working with you, and experience of reading the book, and the book are the lessons that I used to get from Piers at lunch or before the board meeting or at the FIA or when I came to see you or when you were coming to see me and I was dealing with, I'm really young and they are asking me to run this whole thing and I barely know what I'm doing, but I don't want to tell them. Or I'm taking on the sales role and I'm managing a bunch of older salespeople that probably don't even know why I'm in the role I'm in, but I gotta prove to them I can do it. Or we're working for a private owner that sometimes wants or comes up with suggestions that are left field or right field or out of the ballpark altogether. And how do you
Yeah.
respond to that? So
Could
from
could
my
we fire?
standpoint, the book
Could we
is the guidance that you gave me regularly.
could we fire everybody? Yes.
Yeah, so
Um,
the revenue wasn't as high last month. Might we want to let all the employees go?
yeah. And it was, by the way, a finalist in Business Book of the Year.
Really?
Yeah. Now there's a funny story to that. My publisher encouraged me when Pearson, who was the publisher of the FT, they hosted their offices, and she said, "Oh, you should go." And I'm not really a meet greet networking type, so I grudgingly went. And this was for the shortlist. And then suddenly at the end of it, they said, "Oh, and are you still?" That's my book. That's my book. I've been shortlisted. And I don't know why I was surprised that since it was a shortlisting and I'd gone and I had a book that, you know, I was shortlisted. So then when it was the final, because I didn't expect anything, no expectation, no disappointment. So then at the final, all black tie, very fancy, I'd written acceptance speech, you know, just in case. I didn't. Somebody else got it, and I was so but my book was better. So there you go.
You can't, it's sort of like back in the trading markets. You can't really dwell on your losing trades, and you're not very smart if you're going to over celebrate your winning trades.
Yeah.
You know, tomorrow you got to get up and trade again.
So my plan was to put it back in the following year with a different title and see if anybody noticed. but my publisher talked me out of that. She said, no, you can't do that. Can't do that. Chris, it's
Well,
been wonderful. I hope
uh,
we found something useful.
I've always just enjoyed the peace and calm, and I would say in a world like we're in today, and you see the same universe that we're all a part of, I think everybody could use a little patience and calm and discretion. Everybody could use a little Piers in your pocket.
Perfect. So if anybody wants to connect, I always connect on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
Now my name is, I know you'll put it on there, but my name is Easy, not EASY. That's just a description, right? That's like call me a cab. You're a cab. Best jokes are always, the old ones are always the best. So Piers is my first name, Piers. Now Piers is the Old English version of Peter. So it all comes to the same root, Peter, Pierre, Pedro, Piers. Then Fallowfield is when crops are rotated. So the revolution in agriculture in Europe was turning into a 3 or 4 crop rotation. Barley one year, wheat the next, something the third year, and then fallow, nothing in it for a year for the soil to recover. So that's Fallowfield. And Cooper are the barrel makers. So I got a wonderfully wonderful old English name, surname Piers Fallowfield-Cooper. So you'll find me there, or if you type the book title in, Are You Still the Future? Just join. If you want any fancy overpriced consulting, I can do that sort of thing. You've got an up and coming star, and because I know anybody who comes from this and anybody who's connected with Chris, I know it'll be good. It's been a joy and a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing a bit of the wisdom. Thanks for taking a little rough around the edges executive and polishing them back up, over that 13 years. And thanks for staying connected, and love the book, love the connection. We'll talk again.
Lovely.
Okay, see you later.
See you. Bye.